Good morning. Call to order this September 10th CFPUA Authority Board meeting. First, we have a quorum present, but we need a motion to excuse Councilmember Waddell and Mr. Rivenbark.
Motion to excuse.
All in favor? Aye. Next, we need a motion to adopt our agenda for today.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next, approval of our minutes. Dr. Cannon.
The minutes from our last meeting are in your packet, and if there's no discussion, we just need a motion to adopt and pass those.
Motion, yeah, sorry. Excuse me, motion. And I think I heard a second from Jennifer. Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
Don, any public comments?
No, sir.
All right, moving on to our consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to pull number G for some clarification questions.
Okay. Any other items or
No. Motion to approve the rest of the consent agenda beyond that.
all in favor?
Aye.
All right, Mr. Zappel.
Thank you. First, I want to preface this by asking our attorney, Ms. Fulton, are we allowed to talk about the survey map in open session?
I would prefer that we discuss that in closed session.
Super. I'll hold on my questions till then. Thank you. You motion to approve with questions coming later. Item number G.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, consent agenda passes. We'll move on to new business, administrative reports, attorney's report. Colette?
So I do not have a report, but we do have 3 items for closed session to discuss pending or potential litigation.
Thank you. Moving on to our executive director's report, Mr. Waldrop.
Yes, we have before you our standard executive director's report items, the key indicators, the safety report, the environmental report, the strategic plan update, and the economic projects update. Are there any questions for those standard reports?
Mr. Chair, I've got a couple questions about the key indicators or comments.
Yes.
Appropriate? Thanks, Wes.
Yes, sir.
Number one, the development services on page 130. Inspections performed at 231 is, again, a 12-month high, a second time in the last 2 months. And again, it's trending up for the entire year. We just seem to be crushing it. I'm curious as to whether that indicates a certain project that's come online, or is that across the board? But we are really in a strong position.
I'll ask our chief engineer to come forward and share any wisdom he might have around that particular metric.
Thank you, Commissioner, for the question. One of the things that we've discussed recently in engineering, Sam Powers, our Development Services Engineering Manager, and I were talking about it, that we seem to, on a monthly basis, have peaks and valleys that may indicate the vagaries of chance. A large subdivision happens to turn their RFIs in on that month, but maybe not on the month before. And one of the things we thought was maybe a 12-month moving average might help inform the true trends. I don't know the details of that 231 RFI. I'm not prepared with that. I can get that, of course, to you. But we were thinking that maybe a 12-month moving average, because if you looked at the 12-month moving average, you would find that this year's really strong. But then when you look at some months, it may not be, but it all kind of averages out, and it's the net change that matters.
Gary, thank you. You've gotten to the root of my question. And I think a 12-month rolling average would be really helpful. Our inspections to me are a real indicator as to the health of our development community, and it's something I pay attention to a lot. So it'd be really helpful to have that. And I understand, that's why I asked the question, did we have a large, development area that came online during this past 2 months? But I certainly like it. It's a really positive thing, in my mind at least. So if we could, tease out that information a little bit more, I'd really appreciate it.
Yes, sir, will do.
Thank you.
I'll challenge our team through Kevin to bring back to long-range planning a modification of that metric for long-range planning to review and approve to modify for here.
Thank you, Ken. The second and last question, I think, is really a comment for John. I think, I noticed that the 12-month debt service coverage ratio at 1.93 was at a 12-month high, which in my mind is a good thing. But the days cash on hand is down slightly this month, and our debt to capitalization is flat. In my mind, those three metrics should move together, and yet we're seeing they're all different. Am I missing something, or can you educate me?
Sure, there's timing differences with your debt service coverage and your days cash on hand. Days cash on hand is purely a cash number in the numerator, and it's divided by a daily expense number. So really the only overlap between the debt service coverage and the days cash on hand is the expenses that are in the denominator of the days cash on hand is in the numerator of the debt service coverage. As far as like how they should move together, your days cash on hand is going to be very much responsive to changes in receivables and payables, right? And so the revenues that are reflected in the debt service coverage and the expenditures that are reflected in the debt service coverage, those outflows aren't necessarily cash outflows, right? So what we've been seeing in terms of the days cash on hand, and really like the biggest threat, is all of these grant and loan funded projects that are on a reimbursement basis. We're making expenditures, we're recognizing the revenues when we make those eligible expenditures, but we're waiting 3, 4, 5 months to turn around a reimbursement for those. So we've been seeing a kind of a creep up. So everything looks fine in terms of the debt service coverage ratio, right? But for the days cash on hand, cash is going down and waiting a little bit until it actually gets replenished. Does that make sense? So expenditures, revenues, those are happening, but those are disconnected from the cash flows, right?
Yeah, all right. That makes sense.
And then in terms of the debt to capitalization ratio, I mean, what that is showing is just the outstanding balance of our debt that we've issued divided by the total value of our system, right? I don't really anticipate much at least short-term correlation between that ratio and the others. Those really shouldn't, you really shouldn't see too much correlation there. It's been flat, and it'll continue to be flat because the numbers that we're talking about are just so great, right? So back, if you look at April going to May, the 26% to the 34%, well, that jump happened because we issued $67 million, right, in bonds back in May.
Yes.
And so as we pay that off and as we invest more in our system, that's what's going to make that go down over time. Now, this is going to experience another jump when we go to issue for Southside. So yeah, there's not really much of a short-term correlation between the debt to capitalization ratio and those other two. Those other two should track a little bit. There should be a little bit of a relationship there, but again, it's the timing of the cash flows. Basically, the debt service coverage, the revenues and expenditures there are not based on when cash comes in and cash comes out. Days cash on hand is. So it's just those timing things.
Thanks. That's all I had, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the reports? If not, I'll share a couple of items of personal interest. One is that we received notice on Monday that we will be receiving, or we're eligible to receive an Emerging Contaminants in Small and Disadvantaged Communities Award grant in the amount of $6,491,368 for the proposed Bayshore Phase A waterline extension. This award is contingent upon the Division of Water Infrastructure receiving the funds from US EPA. So we will, as staff, be turning right around and reaching out to our congressional delegation, asking them to try to expedite any review from the administration. But that is obviously good news. The other item is of personal note. I and Ms. Eckert are participating in a Region 4 sponsored roundtable for executive leadership tomorrow, where we will be discussing various issues that are key for utility leaders across Region 4. It's targeting executives across several states. Thereafter, I will be taking a few days to myself. I've asked Kevin Morris to step forward in my place, so he's going to reach out to you, make sure you have his contact information. It's unlikely you can reach me where I'm going, but you can always try. Mr. Morris will be in charge until I return Monday.
Ken, are any of these related, well, let's go back to the grant, to the work that you did up in Raleigh and in Washington, going back just a few months ago?
It is a team effort, and I want to give credit to the team in question. So Gary McSmith, as a chief engineer, is been the chief cheerleader of bringing this along and making those contacts. I also want to give credit to Ms. Fulton for her work with our lobbyists. And yes, I've had a couple of words with the staff up in Raleigh trying to move it along.
Right.
But it's part of what you've challenged us to do, is to find funding for the water line extensions to wells that are contaminated. If we receive this, we still have to get it released from EPA. My back of the napkin calculation suggests that we're north of $26 million, maybe higher than that. I'm getting head nods. It's probably higher than that.
Congratulations, Ken, and thank you for the work and your entire team as well.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to our committee reports. Our executive committee met September the 3rd. The minutes are in the packet. Have any questions? If not, we'll move on to long-range planning. Mr. Hackney?
Long-range planning met on 8/28. There was one action item, which is 2026 design guide and the technical standards review process for approval. And then we had two informational items, the fourth quarter 2025 CIP report and the water master planning update. Any questions?
If I might take a moment of personal privilege, and I'd like to thank Kevin Morris and his leadership in the team in putting that technical guide together, that action item. I think they did outstanding work, and I want to thank Kevin for his leadership on that.
All right, thank you. Move on to sustainability.
Well, we do need an act, that is an
Oh,
action.
that's an action item. Okay.
Yes.
So we need to take a vote to adopt.
So we are going to take a motion to approve actually
It-
approve the technical standard review process.
We're continuing to solicit and collect stakeholder.
Would you join us at my understanding is we wanted to lay out the policy that instructs staff how to undertake that process. And we incorporated within the two versions you have, there's a red line where we incorporated the committee's comments. And the committee approved it to move forward to the full board with the incorporated comments. So that's why we redlined it and make sure you saw
Okay,
it.
so we wanted to go ahead and move it forward, so we had 2 comments where we directed staff to add an online form for comments, and then directed staff to reach out to our targeted stakeholder groups, developers and builders for their comments on the process and the new standards.
Yes, that's right. So this morning, you're only approving our process, the standard operating procedure that staff will follow annually as we update our standards. And this is stemming from a realization that, there's a tension between technical standards that are intended to make our infrastructure system resilient and robust and long-lasting, but at the other end of the spectrum, you could also make it unaffordable. And so there is a balance between that. And so the process that we have laid out with a lot of good input from many stakeholders involves reaching out to those stakeholder groups and sharing with them the changes that we're planning. And for example, this year we have 32 changes so far that are proposed. Next week we will have a public engagement meeting right here in this room. And for 2 hours, we'll talk to whoever shows up. We've also emailed the Chamber of Commerce and the Home Builders Association and BASE, all of our various stakeholder groups to let them know about these proposed changes. And out of these changes, these 32 changes, 24 of them have no impact on the cost of development. 7 of them reduce the cost of development or add more competition, which should lower costs. One of them is really kind of uncertain, and it is related to giving us more flexibility if a property that wants sewer service has to connect to a sewer main on the other side of the road. So this gives us the flexibility of extending down the same side of the road to the property if it makes sense to do it that way rather than forcing them to cross the road. So again, it's a very thoughtful process. That's the process that is laid out in the SOPs, and so our intent is to then solicit the stakeholder comment and then bring back to the Long Range Planning Committee before the end of the year our final recommendations, and then that would eventually matriculate its way to the board for adoption.
And if I recall correctly, Mr. Chair, we were going to solicit comments on the entire standards. So we essentially opening it up like a rule. And if somebody doesn't like a standard which we're not commenting on or suggesting to change, they can bring that expression of modification to the Long Range Planning Committee. So you may, we're proposing you look at 31, 33, but you may see 40 if the development community has 7 more that they'd like you to consider in total. Of course, we as staff will give you feedback on whether they need to be modified or not. But this is an open book for us to collaborate on making the best standards possible. And then you as a board get to make the risk decision for the organization.
We really appreciate the committee's suggestion for the online form. It stood up. Cami programmed it. It stood up. I even submitted a test yesterday, and it went out to all the parties. So that was a great suggestion. Now, anyone who goes to our website and has a concern or a suggestion or a complaint about our technical standards or our standard details, material specifications can submit that. Thank you.
Need a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
That was our only action item, Long Range. So now we'll move to sustainability. Dr. Cannon?
Sustainability met at the end of August. We do not have an action item, but we discussed our total greenhouse gas inventory and our energy action plan. And as many of you will remember, a few years back, we adopted a plan to try to reduce our baseline greenhouse gas emissions by 43% by 2030. And we have a couple of frustrations where we do not know if we can do that. First of all, Duke has changed its blend of fuels it plans to burn, and that will affect our overall numbers. We also know that the replacement plant, Southside replacement plant, is going to be, it's going to give us much cleaner water, but it's going to cost more energy to do so. So we're in the process of reviewing that number. And it's an internal consistency thing, so we'll have an update in the future for that.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yeah,
if
Mr.
we could go backwards for just a second.
Yeah.
Item number 4, under long-range planning, this is a minor issue, but it's a wording, there was a typo on page 171. The word upsides, spelled U-P-S-I-D-E-S, I believe should be upsizes, like U-P-S-I-Z-E-S, which would change the meaning of that sentence a lot.
No, on behalf of staff, I thank you for that correction. We'll incorporate it.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay, we'll move on to Finance Committee. Mr. Smith?
Finance Committee met on September the 3rd. The minutes are in your package. If there are any questions or comments on that. If not, we'll move to monthly financials. John?
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Let's see. Okay, maybe not. Okay, just very quickly, this is still a look at the end of the fiscal year. Okay, so we are, a few months into the new fiscal year. We are working on finalizing these numbers. Our auditors are currently in the house or remotely in the house. They are conducting the audit. What we normally do is we present the audit in October, normally. We have a deadline that's imposed by statute that's Halloween. It's October 31st to get the audit out. We normally finish a month ahead. So we'll probably be bringing the audit next month, hopefully. We do have the implementation of a new accounting standard on compensated absences that is kind of got the local government finance world a little, I guess, with their hair caught on fire a little bit. So we're kind of working through trying to put together some of that documentation, so that may delay to November. Just wanted to give you a heads up there. The big message here is that we do have a surplus this year, at least relative to our $50 million in our unassigned fund balance. I can't use that. Let's see. So just looking at the trend over time. So this is a look at how our different fund balance categories stack up, right? And we all remember, this is last fiscal year. We were just a little bit under. And remember what was driving that, right? Is we were front-loading capital projects that we knew that we were going to fund with bond proceeds, but we wanted to delay the bond issuance as long as we could. So we were front-loading those dollars with PAYGO funds that have now been reimbursed since we issued the bonds. And so we saw this big, kind of behavior happen, right? This is what happened kind of after the bond issuance. There was a big chunk that went out to restricted. It's restricted. We can't use it for anything else other than capital projects. This jumped, this committed, or this assigned, this blue piece here, that's our assigned for capital projects, jumped because this was the amount that had already been spent that we were immediately able to reimburse back, right? So we saw that. And then now, we've kind of just cracked the surface here. We're at about $2.4 million over that $50 million mark. So we've been broadcasting for the past few months about looking at raising that. Remember that our financial policies don't specify a dollar amount to shoot for in our unassigned. It's a risk-based, finance-based decision that we should be looking at on a continual basis or on a periodic basis, right? I also want to challenge you to think of this unassigned fund balance as not a rainy day fund, not a savings account. It's really an integral part of our risk management strategy. This is kind of like that final layer, right?
So we have a whole bunch of preventative measures, we have insurance, we have FEMA, we have all these other things. This is kind of our last, our last layer there. And remember, I mean, okay, our system is valued at about, we've put historically, and this is from our predecessors as well, county and city, put about $1 billion into the ground. We're about to put another $400 million in just one project. Kevin put some numbers together, and just looking at the replacement cost of our system, it's about $6.5 billion, right? Is what we estimated. So that's kind of one big factor there in terms of the risk. Is if something catastrophic were to happen, you know, this fund balance number needs to be scaled towards that. So there's this risk component, and just the fact that that our system has grown, you know, especially in the last 10 years. The other element too is we like to you know, look at what the rating agencies need to see in order to maintain our AA+ bond rating. And so this is not the same as days cash on hand, but it's very much connected. There's a correlation over time. If you look at it as a point in time, you're going to see differences, but over time they're going to correlate together. So over time, we're seeing inflation in our operating expenditures. That's kind of going up. Well, if you have this stagnant number in the numerator, like over time, that number is going to come down just like naturally, right? So that's another factor. I think those two concepts are related, right? It's becoming more expensive to replace our system. That's very much related to, well, it's become more expensive to operate our system, right? Those kind of go hand in hand. So those are the dynamics there. So next month or maybe November, we'll be bringing back, I guess through finance is where it'll start. But looking at raising our $50 million target to something more. My recommendation at this point is something like $65 million. So, okay, John, there's a gap between 52 and 65, right? So there's a couple of things that may help us, because you are right that, okay, if we didn't have pennies from heaven, then that would need to be made up through rates, right? There's a couple of things. There's the SDC monies that are coming from the town of Wrightsville Beach. We just received the second installment, 3.99, about 3.9 million. So 3.9, this is the second. So we've received about $8 million so far. They owe a total of about 13 million. That'll be made up when they transfer their enterprise fund cash balances on transition. So that's one source there. The other source is, and I don't know, Nick, if you want to share the.
That was going to be a closed session.
A closed session. I can't share it. I blew it. Sorry.
Spoiler alert.
But we did share with the finance committee, and I think Ken has had some conversations with board members. So we are entitled to some settlement funds that Nick will share. So just wanted to kind of share that news. We have some opportunities to fill that gap without it being baked into rates. And that's what you got.
And before John leaves this slide, you may recall that he wants you to think about, this is not a rainy day fund. We have layers. But one of those layers, in particular, FEMA, and the role FEMA has played in addressing local disaster relief and mitigation, that's under review at the national level. We have to watch that. And if that changes, then one of the tools in our toolbox is to consider how it might impact how much we hold back. One of the tools. So that's not going to influence John's decision that he's going to recommend to you in the next month or two. But in the next 6 months or more, we may be knocking back on your door going, hey, this is what's changed at a national level. Here's some options for us to address it. More insurance, choosing to accept greater risk, holding greater reserves. All of that will be on the table for conversation if the national FEMA approach changes in some way.
John, quick question. Could you remind us again, I know this is a repeated question, the difference between assigned and, committed and restricted?
Committed and restricted, sure. Yeah, so these are the definitions that are in a accounting standard called GASB 54, okay? So restricted is when there's a constraint that's imposed by an external party, right? So it could be like a governing statute. It could be a legal agreement, a grant agreement, something like that, right? So our restricted here, there's two sources of our restricted. So there's our bond proceeds that are restricted for investment in our capital system, and that's governed by our indenture and then the actual bond document itself. The next thing is we are obligated by our indenture to set aside 1/12 of the next principal payment and 1/6 of the next interest payment with our trustee, and it accumulates and then they pay the bondholders. That's kind of an unusual feature, maybe like a little antiquated, but I don't really mind it all that much, and it actually kind of makes sense. But the balance that accumulates in that fund with our trustee is also restricted. We can't touch that, right? That is restricted for debt service and payment to the investors. The committed piece is kind of like that next layer. So it's the highest formal action of this board, right? Which is normally an ordinance or a resolution. So when we adopt a resolution to commit funds to put them into a capital reserve, right? That would be an example there. Assigned is kind of like the next layer down. It could be a management decision. It could be board direction, right? So not that highest level of authority. And then everything that's left over is assigned, or excuse me, unassigned.
Thanks again for going through that. I appreciate it.
And that's all I got, unless there's any other questions. All right, thank you.
I'd like to take a point to welcome the new chair for finance, and he's taking it upon himself to come in and take several meetings with John to dive deep in, and that's been very welcome from staff, so thank you for that.
Next item of approval of the design build services agreement is an action item, and I don't know if there are any questions or comments, but Matt would be prepared to answer that. Yes.
Mr. Chair, William, yeah, I was the one who asked to be pulled off. It was mainly because of the size of the dollar amount. I just wanted to make sure everyone took a hard look at it. Anytime we spend $11 million, I think it was worth another look, that's all. I didn't have a problem, actually I did, but all that got covered in the Finance Committee's meetings.
Yeah. One thing that Matt, in his presentation to the Finance Committee went over was that if you look at the CIP, it's a smaller number, but this is really a consolidation of several items in the CIP that was, I think, originally presented back in May. And also, we had our independent consultant evaluate that, and this is right in the middle of the range that they came up with of their estimated cost for these facilities. So if there are no further questions, I entertain a motion to approve.
So
Motion seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Any old business or closing comments before we enter into closed session? I think the only comment I wanted to make was going back to the technical standards, that with the replacement of these water lines with these contaminated wells into the new frontier extending water and sewer, I feel like we're being very proactive, and very ahead of the curve as much as we possibly can in providing that good service, and also working with the development community and everybody else to make sure there's clear expectations on costs. It's a really big issue in the industry as a whole. I think we're doing really good work in making sure that this board has some oversight and making sure that we're doing the right thing for ourselves, but also continuing to see things grow. So like throughout all these things we're doing beyond, I think, the staff here and just being involved and engaged with everyone, just wanted to express some gratitude for all the hard work and talent that we have at this organization. It's really impressive. So thank you to everyone for that. With that, we'll take a motion to go into closed session to discuss potential litigation.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Mr. McLean, Ms. Spell.